Oh, I hope everything. Oh, watch this. Done. Done. Come on in. I want to give everybody a second to get in here. I believe I've got everything streaming properly. Got me a little desk worked up here too. I'm gonna play some music. Play some music, anyone? Anyone? I can see you in the chat. If you come in, please drop a little heart in the comments and tell me where you're coming from. Let's start this out. Come on in. I'm going to start without you. How's that? That's what we're going to do. Move this microphone over right there. A little better, maybe. A little better, maybe. Good morning, family. This is Rock, Recovery, and Revelation. I'm David Carson. Drop me a comment, a little heart. Tell me where you're watching from this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're at. We're waking up to truth, healing, and revival. You know, I always tell stories. I've been telling stories all my life. Been pretty good at it. It's been part of my my memory bank. And some of the stories that I don't share, I've been writing down and keeping record of. And we all know I've been arrested many times for domestic violence and left a big question mark, confusion. What is this with David? You know, it just doesn't match up to my personality or to my character. And never really understood it completely. And that goes for both of us, all of us. I couldn't figure it out. And, you know, as I got older, the only way to seemingly to not be arrested for domestic violence was to be single. And then even when I was single, I got arrested. I'd been alone for almost 4 years. All I did was go into a restaurant, sit down at a table and was eating, minding my own business, and a perfect stranger. It happened, folks. It happened. And it all come down to traumatic brain injuries and what I was suffering from mentally, the injury that people couldn't see behind the skull. And so I've been writing a book. You guys know I've been writing one since around 2009 called This Is My Light and These Are My Tunnels. And that's just a book sharing all these experiences about life that I've gone through, which were very confusing for folks, not just for me, but for everyone that knew me. A lot of things that happened in my life that I ended up doing, I didn't match me for who I was and what I believed in, and it left a lot of question marks. So I believe over the next year or two, as I develop these books, start releasing these things that I've been collecting, you guys will start figuring out a little bit more and more. I'm happy to have this studio. I'd like to thank Patrick Risha, Stop CTE Awareness Foundation, for sponsoring our work. Everything that Davi Fruit Productions does is because, first of all, it was done for 5 years without any financial help. And the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation chose to help us and believe in what we're doing. And so our content now is professional. Look at this. I'm looking at the numbers just rise. Look at it. Watch it. Quality audio and quality video make a difference. I hope that at some point I get this. It shows that I'm streaming at 720. I want to be able to get my camera, which goes to 1080p and 4K, where the broadcasting, I can broadcast it at that. Right now, Facebook and YouTube, they don't allow. Well, they just can't keep up with the speed. So what I am doing is I'm recording at the same time as I'm streaming, so I'll be able to share this at a later date, and my reels and all that stuff will be done with the top high quality equipment that we have, streaming at the highest quality. So stick with us. I just set up the studio where I could sing and play music and stream. There's so much to do, so many things to learn how to do. So I'm getting there. I've got this part down. I believe I'm not glitching. If you're here, please, I've got the chat turned on. Someone say something to me and let me know if it's lagging or if you can hear me. Okay. Right now I'm going to sing you a song. You guys talk it out in the chat room. This was requested by a good friend, Jimmy Westfall. Chaotic pages in this book that I have written down has made me. I don't mind to share with you that I've been lost a million times, though I never thought I wasn't right, 'cause I believed in me. All you have to do now is forget everything I've done and see the man I have become, then fall asleep. Softly hope that, I softly hope that you'll be with me. Chaotic pages in this book that you've been reading now has made you see, and you don't mind to share with me that you've been lost a million times, though you never thought I wasn't right, 'cause I believed in me. All you have to do now is forget everything I've done and see the man I have become, then fall asleep. Softly hope that, I softly hope that you'll be with me. Softly hope that, I softly hope that you'll agree with me. Chaotic pages in this book that you've been writing now has made you see, and you don't mind to share with me that you've been lost a million times, though you never thought you wasn't right, 'cause you believe you see. All you have to do now is forget everything you've done and see the ones you have become, then fall asleep. I softly hope that, I softly hope that you'll be with me. I softly hope that, I softly hope that you'll be with me. Thank you very much. So, rock, recovery, and revelation. What this show is going to be about. You know, I'm always on here every day, just about for the last 6 years of my life. Even before that, it just wasn't making much sense. I was on just about every day sharing my life. And I've been wondering, you know, what can I do to bring all this, tie it together and make sense of it for people so that it can make a difference in someone's life. And I know God can take the worst of situations and turn around to make something great out of it. And that's what he's done with my life. So I want to be able to articulate that in a way, whether it's a show, a song, a movie, so that it touches you in some way and helps change your life or inspires you or gives you hope. And Rock, Recovery, and Revelation is just a show that I'm going to, like this song, Chaotic Pages. I wrote this back in 2005. I had just gone through, my third relationship that had failed. Yes. And was on my fourth one. And the woman that I had my son Connor with, which was a whole new ball game. Like I went into this one like I don't care if I'm in love. I don't care about dating her. I don't care about getting to know her. I want to pick her for her looks and have a child with her. And, you know, I'm losing either way. I knew I was going to lose either way. I can't have a relationship. This is going to end all crazy and painful. So I need to have a child by the time I'm 33. I just felt like something was going to happen. I was going to die. And, you know, Jesus died at that age. It was just a whole bunch of brain damage and prophecy all coming together at once. And so my son was conceived on purpose at this time. Right after this, he was conceived already when I wrote this song, Chaotic Pages. I had left her and went out on my own to live, just drawing boundaries. There were things that were crossed during the pregnancy while I was living with her. We were trying to live together, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. You know, I don't want to have this relationship and end up in jail again and fighting and arguing. You don't know my boundaries. I have boundaries, and these boundaries get crossed, and I don't have control. And once I don't have control, I get pointed at. I'm the abuser. I'm the one going to jail. I've done this already, so I'm not going to do it anymore. So I left, and I thought I was setting some boundaries, which I did. We had after I came back, we had a good 3 years of communication where boundaries like that didn't get crossed. I did not leave this relationship arrested. There was an attempt to try to get me in trouble, but there was no evidence of anything, and there was no, I didn't get arrested. I wasn't going to jail over anything. The relationship just ended the way we figured it would end. This song came about, Chaotic Pages, was because I was writing. You know, I'm sitting here alone in this place. I was renting a room out of a guy that I worked with's house. And here I was, 32. Let's see, 2004. Yeah, I was 30 years old. And, well, no, that wouldn't have been 2004. I was in Chicago, 2004. This is why I wrote everything down. Injuries and memories. Let's see, 2005, 2006. So this was 2006. And I'm going through I still have these notepads. I still have the pads that I wrote all my journals in, all the notes and everything I kept, keeping my life in order. And I was reading through them, and the way I dealt with my emotions and what I was going through, I always wrote it in song, in lyric. And it was the easiest way for me to get it off my chest. I couldn't really talk to anyone about what was going on with me. I didn't really know what it was. I knew I'd had amnesia. I knew I'd bumped my head a lot, but there was no, this wasn't in the news. There was no Facebook groups going on with all, people getting together saying this is what I deal with, and then finding out, oh, we all have bumped our heads a lot. There was none of this stuff. And there was no studies going on about it that I could gather and find. But I did know something was off. I didn't quite know if I was just crazy, if I was mentally ill, if I didn't understand those things. And the doctors sure didn't help. I had gone to doctors a couple times, and their help was guesswork, and their guesswork was off. Every time they talked to me about it, there was no, you're so off. That's not even close. I attempted to take medication as we got married, and Connor was born. I followed the request of my sister to see a doctor, and I saw one of her friends. She worked in the medical industry there in Florida. She introduced me to one of her friends that was a doctor, or someone that she knew anyway, and I went and saw him and talked to him, and he diagnosed me bipolar and gave me medication that I know of people who take it now, and they're outsy cozy. I wrecked 3 times the year they gave me this medication. It's the first time I'd ever taken a psychiatric medication, and I'm going to tell you something. That stuff's the devil. It really messed me up worse. And first of all, it's because I'm not saying that if you take psychiatric medicine, then it's the same for you. Brain injuries and psychiatric medicine do not work together. They've proven this by now, but they're still doing it. Veterans every day suffering from brain injuries and concussions are getting pills thrown down their throat. And, if you don't take these things, if you don't take these drugs, everybody writes you off. Your friends, family, whoever knows you, if you're not following the medical advice of the doctors, then you're just crazy. You want to be this way. So I did my best to follow what the doctors said and took the medication. I totaled a car 3 times. Then I had a head-on collision. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know that they blamed the head-on collision because I had drugs in my system. 2 drugs that weren't prescribed to me, and those 2 drugs caught all the heat. They took my son away from me. I had to work to get him back. I did within a few months of supervision, drug tests, all that stuff. I got my kid back. But that was a lot of suffering I went through, mental anguish. And the head-on collision I got, let's say I had 3, I totaled the work truck twice. They fixed it twice for me. Their body shop man there at my brother-in-law's business, Floyd Brothers Construction in Pensacola, Florida, fixed that little Ford Ranger twice. Well, I got another little truck just like that. I'd stepped out, quit working for my brother-in-law, and was doing asphalt maintenance and striping on my own. And I had a striping machine and a little trailer, enclosed trailer, and I bought me a little Ford MB 3000, which is just like a Ford Ranger. And I had been doing really well. I mean, successful at this business and maintaining a good, my life was good. People still thought I was drunk. People still thought I was on drugs. I still did drugs every now and then. It was recreational, but I wasn't a daily drug user. I used alcohol daily, probably, I would imagine. I don't think I ever stopped using alcohol. But I was maintaining a job, maintaining a professional business. I was doing really well and making really good money. And I was dependable. I was responsible. I was taking care of my life and taking care of my children and taking care of, I lived in a really nice home and a really nice neighborhood, had nice vehicles. I had a garage full of tools. I had succeeded in what I was doing. And I had quit. Something had come up during our marriage, and it had caused me to completely quit. So we were in the process of buying a new house. Across the street from the home we were renting, orthopedic surgeon that was a friend of mine that lived across the street ended up selling me his house. And he did it on a contract so that I could rent to purchase it. And this was a really nice home. The home we were living in that we were renting was really nice, but we were just throwing our money away renting it. And so I purchased this house from him on contract, and I had found this stuff out about my companion, and chose to get a divorce and to separate at that point. So she never moved into that house with me. The struggle was real. It was hard to deal with what was going on, but I had expected it. So it was something that I chose not to be in love with her like I had previously been. I chose not to have connections the way I just chose to not do that in this relationship. And so what happened, and I was moving on. Well, the car accident happened in '08. So this was 3 months after I decided to separate from Connor's mom. And a lot of things could have happened wrong. There could have been a lot. If I was violent and abusive, when the news that I found out happened, there would have been a lot of bad abuse, a lot of bad damage done. But I wasn't like that. The younger I was in my life, the better decisions I made, the more control I had. I had been arrested for domestic violence 3 times at this point already. And so what I had done, what I had done with domestic violence, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So this is why I'm talking about this. It is also in a book that I'm writing about, The Monster Within, which is talking about domestic violence and how brain injuries and domestic violence are like this. They're kind of married together. And what the most revelatory thing about domestic violence in myself was how I didn't believe that I was capable of the things that I was accused of. Not mostly because what happened from the beginning was completely fabricated stories. So the first two arrests were completely thrown out because they were fabricated. I didn't even have to fight it in court. There was no evidence of it. There was, there was no way I wouldn't do that anyway. My character, no, my personality, no way. I can walk away. And back then I had this control where I did that. I could walk away. I didn't get violent with the women that I was with. Now, by the second relationship, I had laid down a borderline, a boundary that, I went to jail, and I stayed in jail for 24 hours. I had to not see my child for 3 months while the court was making her mother come to court to stand up in court and bring these accusations in front of the judge, which the story from that goes, the police officers that took the report and all of this had told me when I was on my way to jail that there's no evidence. The evidence shows completely the opposite of this. We don't believe her, but they gave me an option to press charges on her or to go to jail. And I said, I'm not pressing charges on my wife. There's just no way. It's not part of who I am. She can press charges on me, and I'll go to jail for something I didn't do, and then it'll get thrown out, and I'll deal with it. But I'm never going to be a person that presses charges on somebody. Just not. She didn't hurt me. She can't hurt me. And so I went to jail that day, and then of course the courtroom said if the attorney that I spoke to, I didn't have to hire one. Once I talked to them, and they said, you don't even need one. There's no evidence of this against you. If she shows up, the police that took the report have 3 conflicting stories: your story, her story, and then her mother's story that was there. that showed up at the end. And they're all three different. And so that the story that they had that were pressing charges on me was simply made up. I had to carry that burden with me the rest of my life. I still do today. That arrest is still on my record. It affected me the next time that someone accused me of domestic violence, the next time that happened. And now I'm telling you, this is why for a long time I thought, there's no way I'm capable of hurting a woman. There's just no way. I don't have it in me. I was raised differently. I just, my morals are different. And what I'll get to by the end of this, you'll see that I was capable. Brain injuries eat away at your brain, and your ability to have self-control, you end up losing it. You lose who you are. You lose your character. You lose your morals. You ever seen an old man that gets dementia and all of a sudden nasty is all get out and mean, and these things happen. It's the brain. Stuff we don't understand, but it's the brain. Stuff we don't want to talk about, stuff we don't want to deal with. I mean, I hid from this emotionally and mentally. How I dealt with it was there's no way I could do such a thing. So I'm building this story up to help others who are in my position or condition. If you've had head injuries and you're at the place from this point where you're young in it, and your character is, there's no way I could hurt somebody. Once you've heard this story, you find out, yeah, there is a way that you could hurt someone you love. There is a way you could do things that you would beat someone up for doing the things that you do. And it's hard to live with it. It's a heavy, heavy load. And so that's why I'm sharing this, because of this Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I want, everything Fru and I do is to help raise awareness for traumatic brain injuries, to help stop suicide. And where the suicide came to the forefront of my life is when I found out the damage that I could do, and by hurting folks that I loved. And it made me realize, thinking, maybe my first wife had a reason to accuse me, even though I didn't do something that day. Maybe I had hurt her previously, and that's where that stemmed from. Maybe she just didn't make it all up. Maybe that was because I had been violent to her at some other time. Maybe it wasn't that day, but maybe I had some other time. And it wasn't ever possible for me. Up here? Nope, never possible. I wouldn't do such a thing. But as I got to the song Chaotic Pages that I'm writing, that I wrote back in 2006, I was 3 years away from my very first suicide attempt. And I was just coming to the realization that it is possible for me to hurt someone I love. It is possible for me to have hurt my first wife. It is possible for me to have hurt my second relationship. The second time I got arrested for domestic violence. Now, you got to listen through this story. Don't turn me off. Don't judge this thing until you've heard it all. So listen to this whole story. Get to know this thing, because you're going to find, if you're a traumatic brain injury survivor, you're going to find yourself in it somewhere. If you're a female who's been in a relationship where there's an abusive man involved, you're liable to find the truth about that man in this story somewhere. Most women who have had domestic violence in their life continue having domestic violence in their life. It's something that they attract due to certain damage in their life as well. They attract certain types of men. So you will find yourself help in this story. Just stick around. So the second domestic violence charge that I got, I was out on the pipeline working in Michigan. And man, these memories are stories that I slowed down in my life so that I could hang it. This was part of who I was. These arrests were going to go with me the rest of my life. These things that were going on my record for the rest of my life, I need to know what happened. So these memories of mine, whether I lost my memories or not, whether I woke up and didn't know who I was, as time went on and I started gaining consciousness and getting things back about who I am, these memory stories remain the same. Written down, saved, told by other folks. I maintained keeping these stories alive. And I have witnesses and friends with me during all these times that were there. These moments happened, so it helped me. I didn't just go and make up a story after I've lost my memory. I've researched, talked to people who were there, got the information down. So this arrest came from a letter that came in the mail to my drummer. I was traveling, working on the pipeline at this time, and my drummer had received a letter in the mail, and it was a warrant for my arrest. And it was a domestic battery charge. Well, I'd been out of town for 2 weeks. And the charge was during that 2 weeks that I was out in Michigan traveling. I didn't even get back into Chicago. And my drummer knew it. I wasn't having band practice. We weren't playing. I was out of state. The girl involved was friends with everybody in the band, so they all knew her and saw her and what was going on with her. And she got all drunk one night and threw herself on the stairs. I had broken up with her a week or two prior to that. Before I left, I just broken up with her, and it was our 3-year mark. And I said, I got to go. And so she was going through it. And my car was still parked. When I was traveling, my car was still parked at the apartment complex where she lived at and where I had been living at. And all this was new, so there was no planning. I never did any forecast planning. It was right off the cuff, everything I did. So, during that 2 weeks I was out, we had talked, and just, my point was to always remain friends. This song, Chaotic Pages, you hear in the chorus, I silently hope that you'll be with me. I silently hope that you'll agree with me. I always wanted to be able to remain friends. Why throw years of relationship away because of my brain injuries and the things I've done? I can't continue relationships and I'm losing them every time I turn around. I would much rather stay friends and in contact. So we were attempting that, but it was just too hard for her, and she got drunk and threw herself down some stairs and then called the cops and said I beat her up. And during that drunken stupor, that was the choices she made. Just like the first accusation I had, she never showed up to court because it was a false report, and she could have gotten arrested for it, just like my first wife could have. And so neither one of them ever showed up to court. It got thrown out. The state of Illinois requires you to go to court 3 times. They give them 3 chances to show up to court to stand up for themselves and the charges that they've pressed on somebody. So they schedule a court appearance. I go to court. I stand up. Nobody shows up. The judge says this will be continued till next month. Send it out. Have the deputies go out and send another, whatever they call that thing where they go and deliver this a court date you need to show up for. And then if they don't do that after 3 court appearances, then the state throws it out. The state of Florida, not so much. So these things were thrown out of court. So Illinois would see that and not hold those things against me. It was still on my record, though, that I had been arrested for domestic violence and thrown out. Now, how many women have been beat up by their husbands and don't show up to court? They're scared to. And then it gets thrown out, and that husband or that man keeps getting domestic violence charges. People keep not showing up. It stays on the record, and it shows as there's a problem here. So somebody's going to get nailed sooner or later. Well, that somebody was me. So that was 2 charges on me that I didn't get convicted of, but it was in my record. I never thought it was going to, like I'm talking to you now as with someone of experience. I know, but back then I didn't think they were ever going to do anything with that. I didn't have a clue. It stayed on my record. A judge would ever look at it and say you're a repeat offender. Never knew it because I never was convicted of it. I went to Florida, so at this time when I was writing this song, I had been with Connor's mom close to, she was already pregnant, so it was probably around August, September, and she got pregnant in July. I got arrested around April or May when her and I first met. We'd probably been known each other for about 2 weeks, and I got into it with one of my best friends who was staying at my house and working with me as a contractor, a painter, and he was also he's still a really big music mixer. He goes and tours live a lot of big bands. He's very successful at it, and he was staying with me and had a studio set up at our house, and we'd been together since he was like 16, and Bello had, from the very beginning, him and I had been friends before either one of us had made it anywhere in music. And he needed a break from the music industry had wiped him out. He was worn out. He needed somewhere to stay and do something different, and he was burnt out. He was from touring. And so he had been with me for several months working with me, and we just had some run-ins, and some things had happened that I was very upset about. And I made it known that if I see you, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna hurt you. You cross the line, and just don't be at the house. Don't be at the house. Get your stuff. Get gone. Because if I see you, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm done with you. And I wasn't in my right mind. He's a good friend of mine. He made a mistake, and he had made it a couple of different ways and disrespected me in ways that he didn't believe he had. But I thought I was in the right, and obviously he thought I was a better man than I was because he didn't take the warning and was there. I also called my first wife, or my second wife, Connor's mom, and told her, you've been over every day since we met, so don't come over today because I got something I got to deal with Joey. I'm gonna beat him up. And if you show up in the middle of it, you'll ever get hurt. Because when I'm fighting mad. I don't know who's who, and you'll get in the way. I know it. Don't do it. Well, she didn't listen either, so she showed up, and she got thrown across the yard. He got choked out, and a neighbor showed up that was a friend. He's trying to get in. I popped him in the mouth, and he was an attorney, and I ended up in the back of a cop car and had ripped that cop car. I ripped the back seat out of it, busted I ended up paying like $6,000 for that cop car's rear end. But they got me to jail. That ended up costing me a year of anger management classes. I was on probation for a year. She dropped charges, but when the cops were there taking the report, everybody that had anything to say that was honest was I was violent. I hurt everybody. So I got all kind of charges come at me at that point, but no one pressed those charges. No one sought to get anything out of me other than the city of Pensacola. And the state, what I learned at that time, the state of Florida picks up the charges. And so I thought, just like in the state of Illinois, nobody's pressing charges. The state, I'm done with this. I'll be out of here. No, the state of Florida is allowed to pick up charges. So domestic violence charges in the state of Florida are a little bit different because they will just pick the charges up whether the other party drops charges or decides to not press charges at all. The state of Florida picks them up and presses them out anyway. So you're against the state of Florida, not an individual. And so at that point, it was my first time being a defendant against the state. And I took the plea and went on probation and was charged or convicted of some type of battery. I don't believe it was domestic. They lowered it down for me and gave me probation and anger management classes and all this. I just took it all and did it, achieved it, accomplished it, and moved on. So that had been my third domestic violence arrest at that time. Once this is on your record, there's something, and you've gone through these things, there's something about what you know and feel inside when there's a heated argument or where there's someone involved that you're in a relationship with. There's a fear of a cop being called at any time because you're going. With this amount of arrests on your record, no matter what was convicted, what was thrown out, I know now I'm going. And so you would think that would change things about how I dealt with stuff. Well, the brain injuries and this disease that's degenerative brain disease, it eats at your brain and you get worse. You don't get better. You make less good decisions, not more good decisions. You make more bad decisions. So long story all the way through my life. I'd have to sit here and really start tallying up how many arrests I got. Because I've been arrested quite a few times, quite several more times than that. And that was 3 DV arrests by the time 2006 come around. We're 21 years later now, or 19 years later now. I stayed alone for about 4.5, 5 years. I even got arrested during that time. Like I said, there was someone just in a restaurant that I never even knew, never met him before in my life, just happened to be there while I was eating dinner. And I come to choking him out. Something about traumatic brain injuries, PTSD, being arrested, the violence that was going on in my life, the violence that was going on in my mind, is unexplainable except for those who have gone through what I'm going through. We've seen a recovery and a revival inside of me. We've seen me be born again, physically, mentally, spiritually. We've seen my health get better. We've seen my wife talk about how much rage was going on when she first met me, and these rage attacks that would in the past cause domestic violence charges and me going into jail only happened to change because of Fru's ability to see it as a symptom of brain injury and not a character flaw, something that could possibly change through diet and healing. And what wouldn't change is if she walked away or had charged me with domestic violence charges when I was acting out in these rage attacks on my brain, and it attacks those who were around me, and those who are around me got it the worst. So this living with this TBI, CTE, the domestic violence, the rage, the depression, the suicide, all this, I lived with it all my adult life. We've seen the damage of it from my very first relationship that started. I was married at 18 years old. I was married at 18. I just turned 19, I think, when I got married. It was in August. My first child was at 20. I was divorced and in another relationship by the time I was 27. And then every 3 years, I would stay in a relationship for 3 years, and then I would replace that relationship with another relationship and then another relationship. I did that all the way until I'm through. I took one period of time where I was alone. And like I said, I was even arrested then. So there was no hope. And for you out there that suffer from traumatic brain injuries, who've already lost your family, or maybe you haven't lost your family. I know some of you have good wives that have stayed with you through all this and understood it and tried to help, or maybe they didn't understand. They just stayed long enough to get through it, and so that you know what's going on. You know what's the answer. What do you do when you have somebody like that? What do you do? Is it isolation? Is it hospitals? Is it medicine, psychiatric drugs? It's a long journey to get to where we're at today. We tried all of those things. All the wrong ways, we've done it. What's the right ways? Well, 6 years ago when I met Fru, I had quit taking all drugs, all medications. We focused on, when I met her, she started getting me to eat properly. And that journey got her eating the wrong way. She had been on this GAPS protocol for 6 years, I guess, at that time, or maybe 10 years at that time. And I personally didn't know my head from a hole in the ground what was going on. I was just, and I'm talking a lunatic. And she loved me. She fell in love with me as she got to know me and know who I was inside there. I was still very difficult to interpret, very difficult to really get to know because of the damage that was going on, the disease that had eaten away at my brain. But she made it through it. So the right ways that we've learned how to deal with this stuff is natural. It's having faith. It's having spirituality. It's not one thing. It's a bunch of things. It's holistic. It's seeking peace through removing toxicity, and it's toxic people, toxic food, toxic environment, and then love, caring for one another. You got to love yourself, and then you got to forgive. There's got to be forgiveness involved. The number one person I had to learn to forgive was myself. I first had to acknowledge that yes, I was capable of hurting even my first wife, even though those charges were thrown out and were falsified. That doesn't mean that during our 7-year marriage that these injuries that I have didn't take over who I am, and because I blacked out often. I lost consciousness, and that's why I started recording, you guys. I started recording with a cassette recorder, my relationship with Jessica, my relationship with Miss Kitty, Angela, Kimberly, Michelle, all of those I have recordings of, audio recordings. I kept audio recording from the time there was a little micro cassette. And because, first of all, I didn't believe I was capable of doing some of the things I was being accused of. I couldn't remember. I was blacking out and didn't have memories of up to 3 months on several occasions. So I've been doing this a long time. First, I was trying to prove myself innocent. Now, I just wanted to know what it is I'm capable of and how I could get better. And I'm thankful for God sending my wife, Rue, who's been so patient, understanding, and has compassion and cares enough to help me get better, help me face the truth. It takes a lot to be able to stand out here and talk about domestic violence and own things that no man, there's no, a man that does the things that I've been arrested for isn't proud. There's not a group of guys he can hang out with and say this is okay. I don't think so. I never would. It's the opposite of the kind of person I am. I put the old kibosh on a guy that hurts a woman or someone who's weaker than him. That's what I've been all my life. If you're beating up a bully and a vessel at school, I was always taking up for the underdog and the weaker vessel. So it just didn't match my who I am. So standing up and owning that kind of thing is the most difficult thing I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. When I became aware that I could do certain things, I was losing. When I was blacked out, that I could do things that I wouldn't do. I always believed that even though I'm blacked out, I'm still me. I'm not going to do stuff that I don't believe is right. That's a load of crap. I did many things I didn't believe was right. And so that's when suicide came along. And I don't know who's watching this today. I don't know who needs to hear it. But I do know there's a ton of folks with brain injuries. And I do know that the brain injury groups on social media are packed just thousands and thousands and thousands of people talking in there. And there's a lot of misleading information. There's a lot of negativity. And I just want to be a voice that speaks the truth, that shines the light in the dark places. Domestic violence is a dark place that no one wants to talk about. Suicide is a dark place that no one ever wanted to talk about before I came along and started bringing it up in these groups. 5 years ago, no one would even admit it, that these thoughts went through their mind. They were scared to